The dusty sun dipped low over the small town of Ashford, painting the skies with streaks of fire and gold. In the narrow wooden house on the edge of the wheat fields lived a girl named Eleanor, only 15, but already carrying the burdens of a woman twice her age. Her life had not always been this way. Once her father's laughter filled the house, his arms strong and reassuring as he carried her through the fields. Her mother's voice sang soft lullabies by the fire. But when her mother died, everything changed. Her father, lonely and broken, remarried quickly to a woman named Margaret, a sharp-eyed woman who always dressed neatly, but whose heart was as cold as a stone. At first, Elena tried desperately to win Margaret's affection. She cleaned the floors until her knees bled, cooked simple meals with trembling hands, and whispered, "Good night, Mother," even though the word tasted strange on her tongue. But Margaret never accepted her. Every mistake, whether it was a missed speck of dust on the windowsill or a crookedly folded shirt, was met with cruel punishment. Margaret's favorite weapon wasn't the slap of her hand, but the denial of food. "Bread is for those who earn it," she hissed one evening, as Eleanor's stomach growled so loudly it echoed in the silent kitchen. "Maybe hunger will teach you to obey." So Eleanor went to bed starving. Many nights she woke with her hands clutching her belly, tears sliding silently into her pillow. The cruelty worsened when her father fell ill. His cough rattled the walls, and within a season he was gone, buried beneath the oak tree he once carved Elena's name into. From that moment, Margaret's cruelty had no limits. Days bled into weeks. Eleanor worked from dawn until the moon rose, scrubbing floors, feeding chickens, mending clothes, while Margaret's own 2 daughters laughed and played, their plates always full of stew and warm bread. Elena's plate remained empty. One fateful afternoon, Elena collapsed in the barn. Her knees buckled under the weight of a pail of water, and she lay in the hay too weak to rise. Tears blurred her vision until the sound of hooves made her raise her head. A tall man dismounted from a horse just outside the barn. His hat shaded his eyes, but his presence was commanding. 3 children trailed behind him, their cheeks rosy from the ride. It was Samuel Carter, the widowed rancher who owned the largest spread of land in Ashford. The townsfolk said he was stern but fair, and though his heart had been broken by the death of his wife, he poured his love into raising his children. Samuel's sharp eyes fell on Elena, frail, pale, and trembling in the straw. His brow furrowed. "Girl, are you all right?" he asked, his voice deep and steady. Eleanor struggled to answer, but her lips quivered. She whispered, I'm fine." But her hollow cheeks told the truth. Before she could rise, Margaret stormed into the barn, her face pinched with forced sweetness. "Mr. Carter!" she exclaimed. "What an—" "Honor, forgive the mess. This girl is clumsy, always shirking her duties." Samuel's gaze lingered on Eleanor. He didn't speak, but his jaw tightened, and his hand clenched the reins of his horse. His children peered curiously at the fragile girl on the ground. That night, as Elena lay hungry again, she thought of Samuel's eyes. Unlike Margaret's, they had not looked at her with hatred or disdain. They had looked at her with something she had nearly forgotten existed: concern. Little did she know, fate was about to weave their paths together in a way that would change her life forever. The next morning, Elena rose before dawn as always, her body weak but her spirit still clinging to hope. She swept the porch in silence while Margaret's daughters dozed inside, their bellies full from last night's feast. The broom felt heavy in her hands, and each stroke made her arms ache. She hadn't forgotten the look Samuel Carter gave her in the barn. That look haunted her dreams, stern yet filled with quiet compassion. For the first time in years, Eleanor wondered if someone had noticed her suffering. By noon, Margaret ordered Elena into town to fetch flour from the mill. It was a long walk under the blistering sun, but she obeyed, carrying the empty sack in her arms. As she trudged down the dirt road, dust clinging to her dress, a wagon pulled up beside her. Samuel Carter sat at the reins, his 3 children, Thomas, Clara, and little Jacob, beside him. The children's eyes lit up when they recognized her. "Papa, that's the girl from the barn," Clara cried. Elena froze, lowering her eyes. Samuel reined in the horses and looked down at her. "You're walking alone carrying that sack? Where's your escort?" Elena hesitated. "My stepmother said I could manage." Her voice was soft, nearly swallowed by the wind. Samuel studied her face, the hollowness of her cheeks, the weariness in her stance. Then he spoke firmly. "Get in. The road's long and the sun is cruel today." Elena stammered. I shouldn't. She'll be angry if—" "I won't ask again," Samuel said, his tone final but not unkind. Something in his voice left no room for refusal. Trembling, Eleanor climbed onto the wagon. The children shuffled aside to make room, and Jacob offered her an apple from his small hand. "For you," he said innocently. Her eyes widened. She hadn't tasted fruit in months. She looked to Samuel, almost asking for permission. He gave a single nod. With gratitude swelling in her chest, she bit into the apple, and the sweet juice nearly brought her to tears. The children giggled at her wide-eyed delight, and for the first time in a long while Eleanor smiled. At the mill, Samuel insisted on carrying the flour himself. "This sack's heavier than you are," he muttered. Elena followed in silence, her heart pounding. She wasn't used to kindness. She wasn't sure she deserved it. On the way back, Clara chatted beside her. "You could come play with us sometime. Papa says he's building a swing by the oak tree. Do you like swings?" Elena's throat tightened. She had once swung high in the air while her father pushed her, her laughter echoing. She whispered, "Yes, I like swings." Samuel glanced at her from the corner of his eye. He could see the shadows behind her smile, the weight she carried. When they reached her home, Margaret stood waiting on the porch. Her face darkened at the sight of Elena riding in Samuel's wagon. "Mr. Carter," she said with forced politeness, "thank you for assisting my stepdaughter. She's a foolish girl, but I hope she wasn't a burden." Samuel didn't return her smile. Instead, he said slowly, "She's too thin. Doesn't look like she eats enough for the work you give her." Elena's heart lurched in terror. Margaret's eyes flicked to her like daggers. "Children exaggerate their hardships," Margaret replied smoothly. "She sneaks food at night, I'm sure. I've tried to discipline her, but she never learns." Samuel's jaw clenched. He said nothing more, but his eyes lingered on Elena as if promising, "I see the truth." That evening, Margaret dragged Elena inside by the wrist. "You wretched, ungrateful child," she hissed. "How dare you eat in front of them? How dare you let him question me?" She shoved Elena into the kitchen and slammed the door. Dinner was served to her own daughters as usual. Meat, potatoes, bread, but Eleanor was left with nothing. She crouched in her corner, her hunger gnawing like a beast. Yet despite the punishment, she held on to the memory of Samuel's voice. He had defended her. He had fed her. And in his gaze, she had glimpsed something that gave her courage. Days later, fate intervened again. Samuel rode past their property, his children laughing on horseback. He saw Elena in the fields, bent over with a pail too heavy for her frail frame. Without hesitation, he dismounted and took the pail from her hands. "You'll break yourself carrying this," he said. Tears welled in her eyes. "If I don't, she'll—" Her words trailed off. "She'll what?" His tone was sharp, protective. Elena couldn't answer, but Samuel had seen enough. He straightened, his presence towering, and made a silent vow in that moment. This girl would not waste away under cruelty. That evening he returned with a basket of food, bread, cheese, and fruit. He handed it to her discreetly by the barn. "Eat," he commanded. She trembled, clutching the basket. "If she finds out—" "She won't," he assured her. "And even if she does, a child shouldn't starve." "Not while I'm alive." For the first time in years, Elena ate until she was full. She wept as she chewed, the taste of kindness more overwhelming than the food itself. Samuel stood nearby, his eyes softening. His children watched, smiling as if they had found a sister. That night, Elena lay awake in her small bed, her heart pounding with a new kind of hope. Samuel had stepped into her world like a guardian, like the very hand of fate. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time, she dared to dream of freedom, of love, of a life where she could laugh without fear. And though Margaret's shadow still loomed over her, Elena's spirit whispered, "This is not the end of my story. Something better is coming."